You know that feeling, right? The constant buzz of modern life, deadlines, notifications, just everything. And what do? So many of us reach for a cup of coffee, or maybe tea. It's this little ritual we have to power through or just find a single moment of calm. But what if there's something more going on in that cup than just habit, or even just caffeine? What if one of the most popular drinks on the entire planet has a compound that can literally sharpen your mind while, at the same time, soothing your stress? Okay, we're going to dive into this because the science is pointing to a pretty huge yes.
So what is this secret ingredient we're talking about? All right, it's time for the big reveal.
I want you to meet L-Theanine. Now, it's an amino acid, but not the kind your body uses to build proteins. Its real claim to fame is that you can pretty much only find it in the tea plant Camellia sinensis. In fact, if you've ever had a really good cup of green tea and noticed that subtle, savory, almost brothy flavor, that's umami, and you have L-Theanine to thank for it.
Now, what's really interesting is that our bodies don't make L-theanine on their own, so we have to get it from what we consume. Good news? The FDA considers it generally recognized as safe, and you can get it either from your daily brew or, as we'll see, as a more concentrated supplement. Okay, so we know what it is, but the big question is, what does it actually do? First up, let's look at its reputation as a serious stress buster. To really get why this research is so important, you got to remember the context. A 2020 study pointed out something we all felt. The pandemic put a massive strain on our collective mental health. This created a real urgency to find safe and effective ways to manage stress, which put compounds like L-theanine right under the scientific microscope.
Now, before we get to the results, it's so important to understand how scientists study this stuff to make sure it's legit. The best studies are what's called randomized, placebo-controlled, and in this case, even triple-blind. This slide breaks it down perfectly. It's the highest standard for preventing bias. It means the results you're about to see are the real deal.
So using this super rigorous method, the researchers first had to prove they could actually stress people out in a lab setting. They used a specific test and, yep, they confirmed they could reliably and significantly raise people's feelings of anxiety. This basically created the perfect testing ground.
And what did they find? The key takeaway was this. L-theanine had a real, measurable impact on that sharp, in-the-moment anxiety that hits you right after something stressful happens. This was huge because it established its potential as a serious tool for managing stress. But being calm is only half the story. What about focus? This is where things get really interesting, especially when L-theanine teams up with its famous partner in crime, caffeine.
Come on, we've all been there, haven't we? You've had a terrible night's sleep, but you have a huge day ahead, and you absolutely need to be on your A game. Well, some scientists in Sri Lanka decided to put that exact scenario to the test.
So here's the setup. They took a group of acutely sleep-deprived young adults and gave them a really challenging task. They had to watch a traffic simulation and spot an accident scene right before it happened. As you can see here, one group got a combo of 200 milligrams of L-theanine and 160 milligrams of caffeine, while the other group just got a dummy pill, a placebo. The first result was just wow. The L-theanine and caffeine group got faster. How much faster? The reaction times improved by an extra 38.1 milliseconds on average compared to the placebo group. Now that might not sound like a lot, but in a driving scenario, that's the difference between a near miss and a full-blown collision. It's huge.
But okay, were they just faster and more reckless, or were they actually better? This chart tells the whole story. The hit rate, basically how accurately they spotted the accidents, it shot up significantly for the L-theanine and caffeine group, and the placebo group, no real change at all. So they weren't just faster, they were more accurate too.
Faster reactions, better accuracy, but how? How is this all happening? To understand that, we have to follow the molecule on its journey, right into our body's command center.
And this whole process is remarkably quick. After you consume it, L-theanine gets absorbed and hits its peak concentration in your blood in about 50 minutes. But here's the real magic. It's one of a special group of molecules that can cross the super selective blood-brain barrier. That means it can get in there and have a direct effect on our brain chemistry.
So once it's inside, it gets right to work. It's been shown to boost alpha brainwaves. Those are the ones linked to a state of calm alertness. Think about when you're in a creative flow, totally focused but also relaxed. That's alpha. It also nudges key neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. And get this, it even helps quiet down the part of our brain that's responsible for mind wandering.
To actually see this in action, The researchers looked at a very specific brain signal called the P3B wave. The easiest way to think about it is like your brain's attention marker. The bigger the signal, what this slide calls its amplitude, the more brain power you're dedicating to a task. And the quicker that signal appears, its latency, the faster your brain is processing information. And this right here is the neural proof. Look at the L-Theanine and caffeine group. Their brains showed a significantly higher P3B amplitude, which means they were devoting more mental resources to the task. And their P3B latency was about 30 milliseconds faster, so their brains were literally working harder and faster on the task at hand.
So the science is honestly pretty compelling. But what does all of this mean for you, for me, and for our daily cup of tea?
Well, here's where it gets a little tricky, because it all comes down to the dose. Just take a look at this table. A cup of green tea has maybe 6 or 7 milligrams of L-theanine, but the studies we've been talking about, the ones with these huge effects on stress and focus, they were using 200 milligrams. That's a massive difference. It means your daily cuppa is great for a gentle sense of well-being, but it's not going to produce those really potent effects. Those are almost always associated with supplemental doses. All right, so let's tie this all together. What are the big takeaways? First, L-theanine is a super unique amino acid from tea. Second, at higher doses, it shows real potential for knocking down acute stress. Third, when you pair it with caffeine, it becomes this incredible formula that sharpens focus and reaction time, even when you're exhausted. And finally, it's not magic. It works by directly changing your brain activity, boosting that state of calm alertness and focus.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question. We've unlocked a secret that's been hiding in our teacups for centuries. As our understanding of the brain just gets deeper and deeper, and we learn how to harness compounds like L-theanine, what does the next generation of cognitive enhancement and mental well-being even look like? What's next on the horizon?